which we've had several. Oh, there's Carol. Okay, you can go live anyways.
Okay, we are live and just waiting for our audience to populate the room.
Okay. Hello, Carol.
Hi, Joe. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm all right. Are you starting right now?
Yeah, we are live.
Okay.
And I guess we have enough folks. Charlie Lovasetti may come in. Hopefully, our new member. I don't know where Dan is, but he's late sometimes. So why don't we get this meeting going? Let me bring this meeting to order. This is the July 5th, 2022 Newburyport Conservation Commission meeting taking place on the Zoom platform. This meeting is being recorded.
Joe, Dan said he's not coming.
Dan said he's not coming. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. You said that before. All right, never mind.
But I thought most recently when Julie emailed him, he said he'd call in.
Yes, but yeah, we found out that he didn't really need to.
Oh,
No.
okay.
Okay. So no Dan, we'll go. And the first item are the approval of the meeting minutes, June 21st, 2022. Anybody got any comments or changes or?
Yeah, we didn't meet.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, that's June 21. No, yeah, June 21. All right. Yeah, we didn't meet, did we? And we
Should be
took,
the,
so
should be
we're
the
doing,
June 7th meeting.
so the June 7th, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm reading off the directly off the agenda. So June 7th meeting, any comments, questions, changes?
Joe, I'm sorry, this is Andy. I assume that's just a scrivener's error typo. But
Yeah, there's a typo on the
yeah, the reference to the 7th. Yep. Okay.
yeah, should be the 7th.
Motion to approve?
Second,
All right, Steve Moore,
Yes.
Carol Wagon.
Wasn't there. I don't think I can.
Okay.
Can I?
I think you can.
Okay,
but,
I approve them. They sounded good.
Okay, David,
yes.
and I vote yes. And I would like to officially welcome Charles Lovasetti to his first meeting here at the Conservation Commission. Welcome, Charles. Charlie.
Thank you. Welcome. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
All right, let's go on. Next item are the Plum Island updates. The only Plum Island update that I'm aware of is that the Army Corps put out their request for bids, and apparently they got 2 bids that were within the range that they were willing to pay for. So so it looks
That's
like,
good news.
yeah, looks like something will be happening. I think it's possibly in September. I'm not positive on the start date right now.
The newspaper article seemed to indicate some kind of rock work was doing. I assume that's just false.
I think that was the rock work that was done months ago.
Yeah, I would have guessed that too.
Yeah, I saw that, and I was confused about it, but I don't know if they repositioned rocks or what, but
Oh, there were a lot of rocks that were put out there when the emergency measures were taken a couple months ago, and it looked
Right.
like the same rocks. Who knows? Maybe they were. I haven't heard anything about new rocks going in there.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what-
all right. And we do have Dan Warshall with us. Coming to us from vacation. Hi, Dan.
Hello, how you doing?
Good,
I had to rotate. Sorry about that.
that's okay. Dan, meet Charlotte Alovisetti, sorry. I'll get that right, Charlie. Our new member.
How are you?
Good, yeah.
Good, thank you.
Okay, so what we're gonna do tonight, we're gonna move the city of Newburyport Central Waterfront improvements discussion to the end. And we're gonna have Newburyport Development discuss Browns Wharf, Tuscan Grill situation. Who do we have? Paul Avery?
Yes, I am here, as is Chris, I believe. I can't really tell, but I assume he is.
Yes, Chris Skiba is here too.
Paul, this is Andy. What visuals did you want to speak to?
I mean, I have a
can,
quick,
I can pull up an ortho photo. So
sure. No, I've got a couple of them here, and I've got a deck here. I can just
Oh.
go through quickly if that's helpful. If I can join.
yeah, just one moment.
Okay. Why don't I share screen if I can?
Okay, Andy, Chris Skiba has his hand up too.
All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So we have two, ortho photos here, before and after. The one on the top just came right from the city GIS, and then the one on the bottom is the current condition. So what you can see here is that, the wharf itself has remained unchanged. The surface that has been used for boat storage, as it was boat storage season when the top photograph was taken, has been just resurfaced as a white stone that's been placed down, and a series of picnic tables with umbrellas have been put out with the idea of some seasonal outdoor dining. There are two portable structures that are also in place. This one right here, if you can see my hand, is like a little food truck, and I've got some other pictures of it, that has been connected with utilities that have been laid on the ground to the Tuscan Grill property. And then this here is a shipping container, which is serving as a bar. So, the furniture is the picnic tables, with some Adirondack chairs, and it's still getting organized at this point, but there's some high tops and that type of thing. No earth moving activities have taken place. It's just resurfacing it with some stone that's been placed and, putting out the furniture. This here is, another aerial image of the same thing, a little closer up now, more perspective. There's the food truck. There's the container with the bar. Here are the picnic tables, Adirondack chairs. There's some barrels here, and then these are there's string lights here. They're held up on posts that are in planter buckets. So here's a ground shot. Another ground shot. This shows here, here's the container, that's the bar, and then this is the food truck over here. Here are the light poles that are, as I said before, in the planter buckets with the string lights on them, and some barrels. And another photograph here. And then lastly, what I have is just a site plan. I don't know if you want to get into this, be happy to do if you want, but we did file a notice of intent. Talk with Julia about this. We filed it on Friday. Just, covered the basis. Would this have been an RDA or not? We just did the NOI because, eager to, get occupancy, assuming this can get approved sooner than later, and rather risk the positive determination and lose a couple weeks, to then having to go back and file the NOI. We just, took the conservative approach, filed the NOI. It went on Friday morning, and presumably we're on the agenda in 2 weeks. And that's it. I can go back through the visuals. I don't know, Chris, if you've got anything you wanted to add, or you there?
Yeah, I guess I wanted to mention Amy Scarpello is from Tuscan, I believe, is also on.
Yep. And she,
Okay, so if there are
Turn it
any
right on.
operational questions, Amy could answer any of those operational questions.
Yes, I'm here.
okay, well, I guess, appreciate the update here, but you filed a notice of intent, so, I guess we're gonna be spending some time looking at all of that too. I don't know if anybody else from the commission has some questions before we take a look at that or not.
I had asked earlier about the, even though it's not within our actual jurisdiction, however, the question about the Chapter 91 approval. And I was hoping to look at that and get a better understanding whether you have approval to do this.
This is Chris. Our attorneys have looked at that, and they can provide something for that. They have evaluated that it is in compliance. And again, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know the specifics around it, but we can put something together for that based on their review.
Okay,
Yeah, and then in the notice of intent, I assume would be forwarded to, well, it will be forwarded to DEP, and they probably will send it to Waterways. And so it would probably be a good idea to send such information to them as well to expedite this.
I think they usually do some kind of cover letter when they do that, describe it.
The DEP went to, Wilmington like it normally does, and it also NHESP is getting a copy too. I mean, that's a completely different topic, just because if you look at the way the line is drawn, the habitat extends landward, which I just think is a macro level mapping error or whatever. But regardless, we sent it into them. So okay.
yep.
Were there any
So
drainage
we'll
changes
be
made?
able to get those documents as well, the attorney's information.
Ask again, David,
We'll be able to get the attorney's information as well.
about their decision regarding Chapter 91.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure they can put something together for that.
Steve?
Yeah, were there any drainage changes made to accommodate what's happened here?
No, you just put the stone down.
It's sitting on top of the concrete or hot top or whatever.
It's sort of a hodgepodge of different surfaces is my general understanding of it. There's some crumbled pavement and some gravel and miscellaneous concrete pads left over from things that have happened there over time. And is that an accurate summation, Chris?
Yeah, I would say so. There's a concrete pad that used to have a storage tank, a above ground storage tank on it at one point, and then a lot of gravel on top of gravel.
Yeah, and I can call the site plan up again, but if you look into it closely, you can see that there's just sort of all kinds of different things that have been going on there historically, and just covered it over.
Okay.
Okay.
Anybody else got anything?
Just was curious to know if you're currently operating the business there?
We are not.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Amy.
Sorry, we are not. We're waiting for approval here.
Are you waiting for any approval from any other commissions?
We lined up the approvals for the other departments, and we have a building permit ready to go for those storage containers. So Amy has one walkthrough left with the fire department, and I think the last sign off ends up being health, right?
Correct.
Building department's all set.
Just was wondering if the other members of the board want to wait and, complete the NOI, or if you want to allow them to operate this temporarily pending review of the NOI.
Yeah, I don't think we probably can't even legally allow them to operate without because they don't have a permit from us, so I would certainly not vote for something like that. I think we need to go through the process, and if everything's in line, I'm sure it'll go through pretty quick, relatively speaking.
I'm sorry, I had to step away because I had an emergency, but so do they have a DEP number? Has that happened?
No, they just submitted their NOI on Friday. So,
Okay. Don't we have to wait for that also?
yep. All right.
So I guess if you want us to be able to approve this in 2 weeks, DEP has been a little lax in assigning numbers of late. You might want to pressure them because we can't sign off unless there's a DEP number.
Okay. I actually sent a paper copy into Wilmington too. I don't know whether the EDEP process works more quickly on that or not, but we can continue to keep a finger on it.
Yeah, you may want to pay attention to that.
Okay. But the check went in too, so it's just a question of them completing their process.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
We have anything else?
Do we need a motion to continue, or we're just going to wait till? the-
No, this is just informal. They've submitted their NOI, and hopefully it'll be on the agenda for next time. And we will go from there. All right. All right, thank you,
All
gentlemen.
right.
All right.
Thank you all very much.
All right, next item, certificates of compliance, requests for determinations, et cetera. The first item, the Daily Group, 3 to 7 Colby Farm Lane. Their representative, Lisa Mead, asked if we could do a continuance until next meeting. Correct, Lisa?
Motion to continue on that.
Second,
Roll call. David Vine,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes,
Carol Wagon,
yes.
Dan Warshaw.
Yep.
Charlie, I'm not gonna call on you because you were not here for the other meetings we had. So that'll happen a couple more times tonight.
Chair, could I just get a clarification? That's a continuance to the 19th of this month, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Next item is Gary Swirling, 3 opportunity waivers, request for a certificate of compliance. And I see Millennium Engineering has their hand up. And unmute yourself.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hi, good evening. This is Matt Steinel from Millennium Engineering. If I have permission, I can share my screen. I can bring the plan up and quickly go through the request that's before you tonight.
We have the plan here for you if you want to speak to that.
Okay, I have a video as well. I can show that afterwards. But the request that's before you tonight is in regards to 3 Opportunity Way. It's packaging specialties. It is a commercial development that was done quite a while ago. I think it's over 5 years now. And basically there was an addition that was constructed on the street side of the building. It's the main bump out that you see closest to the road there. And then you can see the wetland to the right here, right bottom corner. And Millennium went out in 2017 and did an as-built on it, which is essentially the plan that you're looking at today, and found that the main structure and the associated work relative to the parking area was all done in reasonable conformance with the original design plans. What I found out more recently in working with Julia, your agent, is that there was also a planting plan that where I'm not too thrilled that it's on Millennium border because we didn't actually do it and I didn't catch it, but I was unaware there was a planting plan that was part of this. So my letter, which states that everything is done in close, reasonable conformance with no major deviations, is out of date because we just found out about the plantings on the street side and running between the wetland and the building and up the right-hand side of the property. Now, I've spoken with Gary Swirling, who is the owner of the property, and he has indicated that all the plantings along the roadside in front of that bump out there have been installed, and that's the video I have. I can show you that. But the plantings that are between the wetland and that little area, that front yard there on the right-hand corner there and running up the side, he was unaware of as well. So I've spoken to him about that there. He has a landscape gentleman who is going to count up the number of plantings that are needed in there and come up with a proposal for him to have those installed as soon as possible. Tonight, what we're asking the commission here is originally was for a request for certificate of compliance. What I would actually request of the commission is a partial certificate of compliance for all of the major work related to the building, and just leaving the vegetation kind of with the open order. The reason for that and the reason for not just continuing this until that's resolved is Gary's in the process of doing a refinance on the building. And with this outstanding order tying things up, he won't be able to do the refinance. And he's concerned with the way the economy is right now, rising interest rates, that he's going to miss out on getting the refinance done in a time when it makes sense to do so. Again, I have the video. I can show you that the front is all done. They're all 5+ year-old mature plants that are doing very, very well. He has every intention of doing the additional plantings on the side that he said he was unaware of, and he will be happy to, if the commission feels that it's appropriate to issue a partial certificate, the department can hold the certificate until he provides the commission with the list of plantings that are to be installed, as well as if he would like, he would offer up a bond to cover the cost of the installation to ensure that they're done, to provide you with a level of comfort to know that it will be done.
Okay. Andy, any thoughts on that part?
I have no objection with the partial certificate of compliance, if that's the question.
Okay. Usually Julie chimes in on things like that, so figured I'd ask.
The only thing I might mention is if take a look at the order of conditions and see if there's a 2-year growth requirement before we could issue a final after these things are planted.
And he's aware of that. And so the plants that are in the front are well over 5 years. And
Right.
as I said, I have a video. I can show you the video if you'd like. But he would understand that the new plants going in that front corner and along the side would have that same 2-year window.
Okay,
And of course, the partial we're doing is just going to be covering, it's not going to be even covering the plants, correct? Just going to
Just the
be just the structure.
Correct.
So,
Do the people who you're getting the refinancing from, do they understand that the property still won't be free and clear, that there'll be these ongoing restrictions?
Well, we're hoping that that won't be an issue with them. We just found out about this issue, so I don't know that the owners had time to discuss that with them, but we're hoping with the partial certificate in hand on the structure, which is really the major focus of what the finance people, I think, are going to be concerned with. The plantings, that's something that Gary will back up with that bond that you would hold to ensure that the work is done. And we think that would be enough to satisfy any concerns that the refinance company may have.
okay.
Is that something we've done before, Joe, taken a bond like that?
We've had, what is it called? It's been a while since we've gotten one, or we've had one set up. I'm not remembering what the term is for it.
it's an escrow account? Or?
Escrow, yeah, an escrow account, yeah. Escrow to do that. So we need to decide whether we need to have that set up for peace of mind.
Sure, this is Andy. I'll defer to the commission, of course, but if I could speak to that. If this is just a partial and it's restricted only to the structured elements of the plan and not the plantings, then perhaps that particular detail could be dealt with at the time of final in terms of the escrow end of it, unless you're concerned about attaching a condition at this time to the partial.
Okay, what do people think?
Well, it doesn't sound like we're attaching a new condition. The conditions are already there.
Yeah,
Haven't been
the
met.
only new condition would be the having you have to set up a bond.
Yeah, I think we could do that. Julia's done it before, so it shouldn't be difficult.
Okay. So we want to add a special condition that a bond get set up and then,
Right.
okay,
Is that, so that's pending review of the estimate for the plantings, correct?
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Then do we have anything else regarding this?
So do we have any idea what the time frame is going to be on this? Is it going to be resolved
Yes.
anytime soon, or is it going to be a while?
Well, no, it's gonna happen quickly. The owner got his landscaper involved today. As a matter of fact, when I contacted him, they had a conference call with me, and he assured me that he could have the proposal with the costs all outlined no later than the middle of this coming week. He expected before the end of this week, but I told him middle of next week to give him enough room that he wasn't, backing himself into a corner. So we would have this, completed and over to the town for them to review it by the middle of the next week, if not sooner.
And you and your client are comfortable with the city holding the equivalent cash amount for the plantings until the plantings are taken care of?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anybody else?
I'll make a motion to issue a partial certificate of compliance.
A second?
Okay. Andy, can I have Charlie vote on this?
Yes, he
Yeah.
did not have to participate in the original permitting to act at this time, if that's the question.
Right. Okay. All right. All right, roll call. Charlie Alovisetti,
Present.
yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Dan Warshaw,
Yes.
Carol Wagon,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All right. Thank you. Thank you all. We look forward to your plans. All right, next item. Can I get a motion to open the public hearings?
So moved.
Second.
All right, roll call. Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshaw,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Carol Wagon,
Yes.
Charlie Lovisetti,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Charlie, we open up public hearings because it's actually a hearing where the previous items are not a hearing. The public can comment on the hearing items. All right. First item on the agenda is Robin Wallace, 479th Street, notice of intent. Carol, were you going to make a statement regarding this?
Well, I think what I should do is just vote present. I don't want to take a position on this because I know Robin quite well.
Okay.
This is Andy, if I could, typically the indication is given by a board member by just recusing oneself for the record, and that's just sufficient.
Okay, I recuse myself then. Thank you. Do you want me to leave for the discussion?
Probably should at least shut your camera off and your
Okay.
audio. Okay. All right. So we have Devin and Lisa Mead and Joseph Cohen.
Yes, thank you, commission members. Can everyone hear me okay?
You're a little fluttery in voice, but we can hear you.
You can hear me a little bit? Okay,
Yeah, you're
that
clip-
works.
You're clipping, so let's put it that way.
Well, so I'm here on behalf of our client at 479 Street, as well as Attorney Lisa Mead. I'd just like to go over some of the requests for supplemental documentation that the commission requested on our public hearing held on Wednesday, June 8th, 2022. So it's just been a little under a month since we've seen you. We have provided updated plan sets to answer some of the questions that the commission had in regards to the elevator specification, which shows the mechanicals in the top of the elevator. Further, we provided material in regards to the ramp. Kevin Latity, our architectural design, provided that specification to the commission as well. And we also updated the detail for the pit that will be necessary for the elevator shaft as well, if I didn't already mention that. So with that being said, I know the commission had some concerns about like the depiction of the elevator. So we're hoping that these plans in front of you today, which should be dated 6/21/22 and updated, which have also been provided to DEP, are available to you, and we'd like to, I'm not too sure if Lisa wants to take it away in regards to anything else, but I'd be open to any questions that the commission might have after the review of the waiver request and other supplemental materials we provided.
Thank you, Devin. Mr. Chair, can you hear me today? I'm having some technology problems on my end too. So
Yeah, no, you're fine.
okay. So I just want to point out on the plan in front of you, which Devin indicated, everybody wanted to know at the last meeting, not everybody, but a couple of commissioners, to more clearly depict where the elevator was. And you can see on the elevation on the lower left-hand side on the west elevation, not the site plan, the elevation. Well, you can see it in both locations. So you can see how Kevin called out the elevator, proposed elevator area. And so you can more easily see how you would enter onto the existing deck at that bottom door via the ramp that you saw on the site plan. And then you take an immediate turn and that goes into the elevator, and you can see the proposed elevator shaft there. And if you go back to the site plan, please, Andy. And then you can see where you go on to the decking and then into the elevator, which again is pointed out, proposed elevator shaft hallway, floors 1, 2, and 3. And you can see that also on these plans, which I think needed to be pointed out. I also want to include the information that I provided to the commission and the chair earlier. There was a question about the pit. There's essentially no pit for this elevator. It's a pitless elevator. The clearance required underneath is to make sure that there's nothing under there. And in this instance, there's actually a hole that's going to be cut in the deck. And then there is existing bituminous already underneath the deck, which is about 24 inches below that. So there's already an area between the deck, which is where the first floor of the elevator opens up, and the bituminous. So there's no pit that's going to be required because the separation is always already there. And what Devin indicated was that, of course, the mechanicals are in the top and it attaches to the sidewall. If I could also just advise the board that the Zoning Board of Appeals did approve the variance for the third floor living space, as well as a special permit to modify pre-existing non-conforming structure at their meeting shortly after our last meeting here on June 8th. I think their meeting was the next week. So the zoning board has approved those permits. I remind the board that while the board has its requirements for a variance, which we went over at the last meeting, and for which I provided documentation, the applicable standard here is the ADA standard. which the city solicitor reminded the zoning board of, and I'm sure Andy can chime in on that because he was at that meeting, that under the ADA, when seeking a waiver from the local regulations and local ordinances, one, a medical necessity needs to be proven, which we have provided evidence of to the commission, as well as the disability coordinator in the city. Then the next question is whether or not the accommodation is reasonable and necessary. And here our accommodation is to put the elevator in and to slightly exceed the 25% requirement related to the amount of square footage that can be added to the structure. And we exceed it by 93 square feet, 63 square feet of which is attributable to improvements around the elevator, and 30 square feet is attributable to the additional living space in order to accommodate the appropriate needs for the handicapped individual. If this board were to decide no, then the city would have to prove that the modifications would fundamentally and unreasonably alter the nature and purpose of the regulation. So I think that we have provided evidence that both we meet both the ADA criteria as well as the criteria related to the variance request. And while arguably we're not required to provide mitigation measures, we have provided mitigation measures within our application as part of the proposed plan. So with that, we're happy to take any questions from the commission, and we would ask the commission approve our request for the order of conditions to allow the work to proceed and the variance as I've indicated. Thank you very much.
Lisa, do we get an official request for a variance?
Yeah,
I've
yes, it was,
lost
yes.
track of where things are.
Yes, it was part of the initial filing, Joe. It was it was in that entire package.
Okay.
I think it was like a couple of days late or something of that sort is what happened.
Right,
But
that's why you continue, thank you. That's why it was continued at the last meeting, right? Because folks hadn't had a chance to read everything.
Okay.
I just have a question regarding the elevator shaft. Is that within the existing structure, or is it being part of the deck that was underneath another deck or whatever, right? I think, Andy, if you could bring up the appraisal, the first page of that appraisal has a pretty good picture of the house.
Yeah, just a moment. Let me pull that up.
Steve, if I could answer the question while he's doing that.
Yeah.
If you can see this heavy red line here right above the 3.8.
Yeah.
So the 3.8 is the existing edge of the house.
Okay.
And then there's a deck. And so the addition is that heavy red line in which the elevator and entry to the elevator will be located.
Okay. All right. Yeah. See. All right. So in this picture, that wall of the building is still there, and the elevator shaft is to the left of it.
That's correct.
And the opening.
That's correct.
Does it come out to that post that it's supporting the upstairs deck?
No, it's not that wide.
Okay. Nope. Okay, that answers my question as to what was what.
Okay. Do we have anything else? Any other questions?
If we could just look on the plan and see where I think there was some mitigation planting, and I don't remember where it was.
Can also speak on that. It is 142 square feet of existing non-native plantings that are going to be removed and then restored with native plantings, which I think will enhance that area quite nicely.
Okay.
And those are all listed on the plan in detail, as are they in Devin's submissions.
Okay. All right, I'm good.
You all set?
Yep.
All right, anybody else? Okay, anybody from the public? Have any comments or questions? Raise your digital hand if so. All right, I don't hear any. Now, I'm not remembering, are we supposed to vote on the variance now, or do we just close the hearing and vote on it later?
Sorry, go ahead.
My recollection, Mr. Chair, was you typically would vote on the order and the variance and then do your discussion about those things later, I guess.
Well, generally what we do is we close the hearing.
Yep.
So I just want to know if, since I can't remember, Andy?
Sure, yeah, procedurally, I would close the hearing, then vote on the variance or granting the variance and waiver, and then go right to the final decision from there, or whatever else might be included in the commission's decision, wherever that may be.
Okay, so just wait for the end, just close the hearing now.
Correct.
Okay.
Unless the commission feels additional information is needed.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay, so what do you want to do?
I'll move to close the hearing.
Second,
All right, roll call. Charlie Lovasetti. I'm gonna get that right, Charlie.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, yes, Lisa.
I just wanted to remind the chair that Mr. Alvacetti wasn't present at the last meeting.
Oh, right, he can't be part of the closing of this. I'm
Right.
getting my different parts messed up here.
Yeah.
All right. All right, so we'll start this again. Roll call, Paul, Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine. Did I get a yet? I think you're froze, David. No, I
oh,
think-
am
Oh,
I
there you
back?
go. You're kind of back now, kind of.
Okay, well, I vote yes.
Okay. And I vote yes. Dan, I asked you, right, Dan? Can't remember.
You did, yes, and I voted yes.
All right. So, thank you. And we will discuss this later at when we discuss the orders of conditions.
Thank you.
All right. Next item on the agenda, John Eric White, Department of Public Services. 239 Story Avenue, notice of intent.
John Eric, are you?
Yep, there he is.
Hi, John Eric, are you able to address the commission?
Yep, can you hear me?
Okay. Yep.
Great. So I'm only here for intros and any other questions that that you might have after our consultant speaks. We have on board Tracy Adamski, and she is a senior, I believe, Tracy, your title's a VP. And she has been the project manager for this since the inception. What they did, commission members, is they updated our watershed protection plan to address climate change. And they finished it in September of 21, I think. But this particular project, we started permitting this particular project to protect our lower Artichoke Dam and our water supply. We submitted a notice of intent with West Newbury Concom in August of 2020. We made some revisions internally. She'll address those real quick. And that triggered more square footage of impact areas. So we had to launch a MEPA permitting process, water quality cert, the whole 9 yards. She'll touch upon that. So that's why we're in front of you. Many of you members attended the commission meeting in West Newbury last week. Thank you very much. So this project, as you already know, and mainly I'm saying this for the public, it's really to protect our lower Artichoke Dam because the existing spillway is 3 feet lower than the current 100-year flood elevation. So our goal is simply to request a permit from you folks and West Newbury to allow us to put in washed stone, fairly large stone, 4 to 6 inch, some might be 8, to form the foundation so that we can come in, and if there's a hurricane predicted or a surge predicted, we can come in and put in some sandbags. So on that note, Tracy, I'm going to turn over to Tracy Damsky. She can take it from there and I'll be available for any questions.
Thanks, John Eric. So I'm a planner and VP, as John Eric mentioned, with Ty and Bond. And as John Eric mentioned, the reason that we're here today is to protect Newburyport's water supply. The map is up here that shows the lower Artichoke Reservoir. This is the lowest of 3 reservoirs, starting with Indian Hill to the south, which all these flow north. So Indian Hill flows into the upper Artichoke Reservoir, which flows into the lower Artichoke Reservoir. And there is one raw water intake, which is located, approximately where that project location leader points to near the lower Artichoke Reservoir and the spillway. So it's about 100 or so feet over to the east of the lower Artichoke spillway. As John Eric had mentioned, that spillway happens to be 3 feet below the current FEMA mapped 100-year flood zone, which is mapped at elevation 12. The remainder of the embankment, or the majority of the embankment for the lower Artichoke River, is at elevation 12, out at or slightly above elevation 12. So the concern here, which was confirmed through some modeling that was performed, is that the lower Artichoke is susceptible to a backwater event with flooding from the Merrimack River coming up the Artichoke River and flowing over that spillway into the lower Artichoke Reservoir. With that, it would bring brackish water and other pollutants that the city's water treatment plant is not designed to handle. So the goal here is to provide a temporary solution so that in the event of an emergency, an Henri coming up the coast, or another, large storm that has the potential for this backwater event, that the city would be able to come in and install some protective device so that water, to prevent the water from backflowing over the spillway here. So, thank you. This here is the project. So it involves construction of a foundation, which is shown here in the stone adjacent to the spillway. And as part of that foundation, there needs to be the side slopes and access to it. That foundation would be at the elevation of the crest of the spillway. And that would provide the city with the option of coming in and putting in super sacks, so large sandbags during before a predicted event, so that there was some protective measures for the reservoir. So as you can see there's a line right about where the leader again says sheet C102. That's the town line between the town of West Newbury and the city of Newburyport. So previously we were only looking at having a very small foundation right at the spillway, but in further discussions and as we looked at other options with the city, became clear that, the city needs to have easy access here. And so having the ramps for the city to be able to drive onto, to put these materials onto the ramp, onto the foundation to protect the reservoir was important. So that's where our impacts expanded across the town line into the city of Newburyport as well. So we have impact to land underwater, to bank, which is the embankment of the existing dam of the reservoir, as well as some land subject to flooding. And all of these are necessary impacts. We work to minimize the impacts as much as practical, but because of the nature of the project and the nature of the location, we were not able to avoid impacts here. We are we're requesting that the commission consider this a limited project for 310 CMR 10.53I, which is the maintenance, repair, and improvement of structure, or but not substantial enlargement of structures, including dams and reservoirs, and pertinent work to such dams and reservoirs, which is what we are doing here to be able to provide that temporary protection measures for the reservoir. I can go through the impacts if you want, or I guess answer any questions that you may have.
Yeah, why don't you give us some of the, go through some of the impacts, if you would.
So in Newburyport, we have 100 feet of bank that's being impacted, 1,800 square feet of land underwater, and approximately 1,080 cubic feet of bordering land subject to flooding.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Yeah, I was wondering if you considered doing this work further downstream at the Curzon Mill Dam, where you wouldn't have anywhere near as much length of embankment or anything to worry about. And, if that was considered.
That dam, I don't believe is owned by the city.
It isn't. But
so that would, there would be some concerns there for, we'd have to obtain additional land ownership and analyze that area fully. Here, this is all area that we're working in that is land that is owned and under the control of the city of Newburyport.
Right. I just thought it would be a much smaller project, perhaps. Not being an engineer, I could be wrong on that, but anyway.
So I have a question. So if this is being done because of the dangers of flooding, isn't it possible to do the project in such a way that you don't have to be bringing in sandbags? Because you may not know that you need them until it's too late. Sometimes, around here, the weather happens quickly. So I'm sorry, I don't understand enough of the project to know whether
This is
realistic.
This is Andy. I just being a city official and having to deal with capital projects, and maybe John Eric White maybe be able to speak to this, but I imagine that has a little bit to do with funding sources and the availability of doing things in phases. Is that fair to say, John Eric, or am I mistaken?
Yes, I mean, yes and no. Primarily, it's for emergency purposes. So as far as capital projects, it's really not quite related. When FEMA changed the flood elevation back in 2012, they raised it. Used to be 9, then they raised it to 12, and so for 10 years we just haven't done anything about it. So what all this does for you commission members in the public, all this does is it sets us it provides a foundation to protect us against the 100-year storm. Now, concurrent with this is more what Andy's talking about. So yes, to the phasing, absolutely. What he's talking about is we have going on at the same time, we hired Time Bond, their preeminent dam engineering firm. We hired them to redesign the lower Artichoke Dam. And once we get their proposal and go through the paperwork, we have a grant with the state for $85,000 to pay for that. So that's very good news. We're going to proceed ASAP on that. That is to raise the dam such that we address both sea level rise, we'll be in front of your commission on that in the future, but also to get the spillway up to at least elevation 12 for ASAP. So first thing first, get the stone. If we get any spaghetti lines coming up our way for hurricane, and usually to answer one of the commission members, I missed your name, I apologize for that. Usually there is good news. We have 3 or 4 days of forecasted warnings. So we do feel confident that there's plenty of time when a major surge event or a major storm comes in. So that's what this is for. And to repeat, we're going to go after raising the dam, but we have to design the dam first.
I see. Thank you. That answers my question. It seemed like it was too short-term
And
project.
along those lines, at the last meeting, you explained the time frame as far as actually employing the bags, and it might be helpful if you talk about that.
Yeah, Tracy, you want me to take this?
Sure.
So let's say hypothetically that both commissions give us the approval to install the foundation stone. This is for the foundation stone. That is it. Obviously, you're interested in how we can maneuver the sandbags, but that's really part 2 of this, which is to be done under emergency forecasted weather forecast. So the short answer is our water super, Tom Kuzik, he's got crews that he'll have on standby, kind of like on-call services for contractors. And it's pretty, it really is basic. In the old days, they would grab a line of people, and I'm not joking because they did it at the Bartlett Spring Pond for the 1936 hurricane. You get a line of people and carry sandbags and dump the sandbags to prevent the water from coming in. This really is no different. It's a backhoe. It lifts a huge, large silt set. The large sacks, the name is evading me, just like Tracy. Super sack.
For sacks.
Yeah, super sack. So, it's nothing but a large grocery bag that is, it can fit a ton of sand. It's nothing glamorous. A front end loader can lift it up, plop it in. That's why we need the ramp. The ramp, they will drive down the ramp with a backhoe, go to the far end on the western end and start placing them there and keep placing them in. We'll place, this is wide enough for at least 2 rows wide. The foundation design, the width is for the multiple rows for width, but also because the spillway is an OG weir, which is curved. It's a natural shape of water flowing in free flow. So it's like a parabola. That gets too slippery and slimy. So that's what the stone's for. And the super sacks will just sit on top of that. In addition, in my mind, there's no doubt that Tom's crews are going to have to get, regular 80-pound bags to fill in the smaller gaps. And it's really going to be who really knows till you get there, but that's the short of it is a backhoe with a front end loader.
And so are the bags are only gonna go on the spillway part of it, or are they gonna go up the sides at all?
So they'll go, if you look close, and Andy, if you can pick on one side and grab the wing wall, it'll be you can pick either side of pick either side. Yep, zoom in there. Perfect. Okay, so you can see the wing wall. Can everyone see the wing wall? Yep, perfect. So essentially the stone foundation will be up against the wing wall. The top of the wing wall in the middle where the spillway is, if you put the mouse there, go to the middle, the wing wall has like 3 walls to it. The middle wall, put your hand on the middle wall, Andy. No, that's the spillway. Go to the side wall, wing wall, right there. Yeah. So left and right, that section right there is elevation 14. And then at the angle point, the 45-degree angle point on the right there. So that slopes down. It's a regular, like a head wall that slopes down. That slopes down to like elevation 9 or something like that. The stone foundation goes up to that wing wall. The wing wall is higher than the stone foundation. So the stone will be dropped against that wing wall, and then the sandbags will be on top of that, crammed up against the wing wall to keep it watertight.
Okay.
I have an image. If you want me to share my screen, I can show that to you.
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay. Can I get?
You know how to do that?
No, I'm looking to see if I have the okay to do that.
Should be a button at the bottom of your screen that says share screen.
I don't see it. I just see my mute and raise hand.
I think she has to be made a co-host in order to share. The
Yeah,
screen.
she got to be promoted to a panelist probably.
Okay, so
got it.
these are, all right, thanks. So these are materials not submitted before the meeting. All right, thank you.
And while she's looking for that, it's important for the commission to understand, this is primarily for a backwater event, a surge. Now, what storm is perfectly backwater? Well, you get a coastal storm surge. That's easily comprehensible. I'm sure you can all figure that, visually see that. But usually hurricanes have inland rainfall events too. So the combination of the two, the water may be rising at the same elevations on both sides. So what you see in front of you is a setup where those are that's just graphics. It's a sandbag, but it's just a graphic that they grabbed from the image catalog that they had. It's not going to look exact like that, but you get the idea. Yeah. Now, in our case, the left side of this vantage point, the left side is is where the water's coming from. That's what's going on. This picture right here shows the water on the right, which may rise in a combination of a coastal and inland storm, to be determined. But if it's a purely backwater event from a storm surge, it's going to be coming from the left. So that's what this is all about.
So John Eric, assuming you put these things in place and they're in there for a couple of days before you decide you don't need them, or the storm passes or whatever. So you've got the water backing up behind it, that normally would be going over the spillway. What happens if that gets to a depth where it's flowing over the super sacks or whatever, or?
Yep. So, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead. I don't understand what would happen.
Well, don't feel bad, because we have a rough idea, but the only thing we can provide is what we will anticipate. But at the end of the day, we just have to monitor and see what's going to be a best situation. So the storm that we are figuring that would hit us, to be honest, we kind of a combination of the two. High surge, but there's going to be a rainfall event that's going to be filling up the reservoir. Common sense. I mean, come on. So, or I shouldn't say that. There might be purely a surge event. That's fine. But to meet Steve's question about the rising reservoir, these super sacks need to go 3 feet higher. Okay. That means the water could be 3 feet higher on the upland side, which is the right side of this picture. When the water's on the left and the surge is the same elevation, it's pretty much equilibrium. So the super sacks don't act as a retaining wall. But the minute the surge is gone and then the left side is below the spillway, the minute it's below the spillway, don't wait any longer for the reservoir to rise. Just start pulling sacks. And that will be a play it by ear type of thing. What we do know, we will anticipate that you remove one sack, you're going to get high velocity. So get ready to move 2. So get ready to move 3. The more you move, the less velocity. Now, I don't want to exaggerate to say that there's so much velocity that it's just going to start wiping things out. But that's why I think we'll end up with 2 rows, because I think the horizontal forces may be big enough to warrant 2 rows just to be safe. And that's how we see it happening is we keep moving them at a careful pace. And that's what we anticipate at this point.
One other, looking at this photo, one other question I had was, if say we do start getting a flooding event or a backwater event, how high is that going to be able to go until it starts flowing over the earthen part of the dam, on the either side of the wing walls?
Yeah, so that turns into theoretically greater than the 100-year storm. The earthen berm is 12 or higher. There's one section in West Newbury that we have to fill because it eroded a little bit. But greater than 100, it's going to be what it's going to be, Mr. Chair. And at that point, we're just going to, Tom's crews and everyone, myself, whoever's, we'll have to monitor the condition of the dam. I know that might not give you an answer, but yeah, you can get a 200-year storm and then it'll be going over.
Yeah.
So this is primarily for the 100-year because it's only 3 feet. If it's higher, yeah, Tracy, I mean, I don't know if Chris has looked at higher than 3 feet for sandbags.
We have not, because the embankment is also at approximate elevation 12. Right. So this just brings the spillway up to the same elevation of the rest of the dam embankment. So as John Eric noted, it brings it up to the 100. So this is protection for the 100-year storm.
Okay. Well,
above that, the waters could be higher, and it could be overflowing both the sandbags and the embankment.
All right, so the rest of the embankment around there is, except for that little bit in West Newbury, is at 12 anyway. So okay.
It is. There's a little bit right at the wing wall on the Newburyport side that we're looking as part of this project to, it's not eroded by much, but just to bring that back up to 12 as well.
Okay. Are you going to be doing any serious tree cutting on the Newburyport side?
Is Tom on the line?
I'm not. Whoops. Oh yeah, TG. Yeah. Okay.
He's under acronym. Yeah, Tom, you with us?
Turn your mic on.
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, as far as I know, there's really not going to be any major tree clearing on the Newburyport side. That side's been pretty well taken care of just because of the fact that, the city's had access to that area. So it's nowhere near in the condition as the West Newbury side, which, as you can see, not in this picture, but if you look at it, the West Newbury side is just trees everywhere because there was no access over there for the city to be able to take care of that section of the dam.
Okay. All right. Do we have anything else on this?
Do we know, or are we allowed to know what West Newbury decided the other night after their meeting?
Can you clarify that?
Yeah, Tracy, I think you're better suited for the overall communication that you've been having with them.
Sure. They have continued. They wanted a site walk, and so that occurred Sunday. But they have not yet had a chance to walk the site. So they walked over here near the spillway, but they have yet to walk over on the other side, on the West Newbury side. So we're waiting for that to happen, and then we'll be in front of the commission again. So,
Okay.
so they have continued at this point.
Okay. Michelle Green, did you have anything? Did you have anything to add, Michelle Green? I know you raised your hand earlier. I will, we'll say no. Okay, go ahead.
John, the super sacks will be filled and nearby and waiting to be administered. Are they in a resource area?
Right now, they're outside the resource area. They're behind, you know, the new access road for the West End easement, the West End sewer. It's over by the gravel access road, uphill from the pump station, a couple of 100 feet away.
Okay.
So the answer is it's not in the resource area.
No, it's not in this resource area. It's up, it's over by the access road.
Okay, so there's nothing that's going to get impacted by the fact that
Not that I can see. It's really just the movement from the access road, which is already built, over a paved, oh, good visual, Andy. So, okay, see, there it is right there. So see the pump station, Andy? Yep, right there. That road, this is the first actual arrow that I've seen with the gravel access road. See the fork in the road? It's like a fork in the road, the very first beginning of the access. Keep going to the right. Yeah, right there. So Tom's got them right in that area there.
Yeah. And that
so
part
it's a
is,
paved area.
yeah. That's
So-
West Newbury, right?
No, that's us.
That's us?
Yep.
Oh, trying to figure out where I'm looking here.
So the access down to the spillway will come from just a continuation past the pump house and then down, yeah, right along there.
Correct. Yep. It's already a grass access. They go down there all the time for whatever they need to do.
Yeah. So basically about 90% of the work here is in West Newbury. We're just approving some access. Is that?
That's how I see it. Yeah.
Correct. The majority of the work is in West Newbury.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? At least on the commission. All right. Anybody from the public want to weigh in? Raise your digital hand if so. Okay, not seeing anything. What do we want to do?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second,
Okay, let's see, Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshaw.
Just wanted to make sure that what if there are any material changes pending West Newbury's continuation and their hearing? Do we want to close now, or do we want to wait and see if it makes more sense to, I don't know. I don't see anything personally that would be a real issue, but just throwing it out there.
Yeah, well, I would guess they'd have to file for an amendment or, you know, for something if there was something that big. That would change at least what happens in Newburyport. But we can decide.
Could we reopen if that happened?
No,
Oh.
well, no, I don't think so. I think once we close it, because once we close it, most likely we're gonna vote on a order of conditions tonight. But, you know, what, John, Eric, Tracy, what's your view on us closing the public hearing tonight?
Tracy, I'm going to turn it over to Tracy and get her professional opinion.
Yeah, I'd say, if there are any material changes, we would come back to you. And there is a process for requesting amended order of condition if the material changes are such that it warrants that, or it could be considered a minor change that's allowable under the existing order of conditions. So there is a process for us to come back if there is a material change.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. I'm a yes. That's a vote. Yes.
All right, thanks. David Vine,
Yes.
Carol Wagon,
Yes.
Charlie Lovasetti.
Yes.
Okay, and I vote yes. All right. Thank you, folks.
Thank you, Commission.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you. Sorry for the tardiness.
No problem. You were here when we needed you. All right. Can I get a motion to close the public hearings?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call. Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Carol Wagon,
Yes.
Charlie Lovasetti,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All right, let's see. Now we will go on or go back to the City of Newburyport Central Waterfront Park improvements. And we have Society here.
Yeah, so this is Andy Port. I'm acting as project manager for the city for this project. And so with us is tonight to speak to this project. We have a couple of folks, Maren Braco, who's our project manager from Sasaki.
Andy, I'm sorry. I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second.
Yeah, go
Joe,
ahead.
I'm going to be hopping off early.
Okay.
So if, do we need to do orders of conditions for 79th Street? I came on really for that primarily tonight. So.
Okay, no, we can, and no, I'm good. Yeah, why don't we go to that first? We'll take care of that. It'll be a cleaner process if Dan is here for that. So let's just, let's do that. That's thanks for reminding me of that, Dan. So we're gonna go to orders of conditions and we'll start with 479th Street. Did we have much in the line of special conditions for this?
I think it'll be just our typical Plum Island stuff.
Okay.
And we do have to vote on the
on the variance too.
on the
yeah.
variance.
Okay. Well, in that case, are we good with the variance? We have what we need for that? If so, need a
Yeah,
motion.
I'll motion to issue the variance in for the public benefit that this provides to a disabled person. And so I'd like to move that we issue the variance on this one.
Second.
Okay, roll call. Dan Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
and I will vote yes. Carol recused herself and Charlie was not here for it, so. All right, so that's done. And now for the order conditions for 479th Street.
If there's no other special conditions other than what we have for Plum Island, I'd move to issue the order of conditions.
Second.
Okay, roll call. Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
And I vote yes. All right. Thank you, Dan, for coming on.
You're welcome. Thank you. If you want to do 239 Story Ave real quick, or if you think that's a longer discussion, whatever, however you want to proceed, Joe, is fine with me, but I'm happy to vote on that too, if you want.
Oh, okay. We want to do that, guys?
Sure.
We don't have any real special conditions for that either, right?
I don't, unless there are special conditions for working around a water supply
Yeah.
for machinery.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's part of our standard ones too, about
Okay,
washing equipment, and I'm gonna bet that the water department's not gonna want any oil going into the reservoir. So, but all that should be already in the standards, so, or standard special conditions.
Assume also that there would be no seasonal or any fish or anything else that we would have to concern ourselves because of the emergency nature.
Yeah, and probably the limited project nature too.
Yeah.
No, well, I don't know of any. I'm assuming if Andy knew of any, he'd be yelling at us, so. All right, why don't we, somebody wants to make a motion for that?
I'll make a motion to issue the order of conditions for 239 Story Avenue.
Second.
All right, Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Carol Wagon,
Yes.
Charlie Alovisetti,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All right. Thanks for taking care of that, Dan.
All right. You're welcome. Thank you. See y'all
Have a
later.
good, have a good
Enjoy the rest of your
vacation.
vacation.
Yes. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. All right, Sasaki, now you're on.
Okay, so Maren Braco is our project manager from Sasaki, and Maren, if you wouldn't mind, feel free to share screen for the slides. There's a couple of other folks from Sasaki's team here. Just going to announce a couple of folks so you're all aware of who they are. Steve Engler is from Sasaki. He's working on the civil engineering side of this project. Jamie Villette is working on some of the plans as well. Dan Dwyer is working on the architectural elements of the plan. Stephanie Krull is going to be speaking to some of the commission's jurisdiction and resiliency matters. And there's a few other folks that aren't here this evening on the team, but they are providing plans for us for the Market Landing Park expansion project. So we're going to run through tonight, I think briefly, the jurisdiction and what we're doing for resiliency as best we can for this project, municipal project. It's being done in phases, so keep that in mind. And then we'll open up for whatever questions you might have. This is in advance of a regular filing. So just like your other project this evening from John Eric White, we're just trying to get an informal understanding of any concerns the board might have, so that when we're making the filing, we can speak to those as detailed as possible. We've tried to address those here by both the jurisdictional boundaries and the resiliency elements of the project. So Maren, do you want to take over the slides, and feel free to do any other introduction for the team?
Sure, I think you've covered everyone. Thank you. And so I'll give you just a brief overview of the design and then have Stephanie walk you through the resource area impacts. Let me just go to full screen here. And Dan Dwyer will speak to the resiliency strategies related to the building. So this is the proposed expanded waterfront park. You'll see with the new design, there's expanded green space, lawn and tree plantings. In terms of circulation, we've maintained the existing ways to the water and also extended new ways to the water through Ferry Wharfway, Central Wharfway. We've also extended the city's rail trail through the shared use path going from the east, meeting the Waterfront Trust property at the boardwalk and then going to the west. Along that shared use path, we have a number of activation moments. So we have picnic and hammock grove here among the tree plantings at the edge. Ferry Wharf Plaza has tiered seating for social gathering, as well as swing structures that look out to the water. The West Embayment Plaza will be activated by a sculptural element created by a local artist. We've also been working with the city on an Indigenous Peoples place to create a passive place for a more contemplative area within the park that can also hold events for that community. And then finally, we have the visitor center and restroom facility, which Dan will be speaking to in more detail. And just to give you a sense of the principles that are really driving the project, in terms of programming, we want to create an active and inclusive destination that works throughout the seasons, really embrace the character of Newburyport and the waterfront, connect this working waterfront to downtown, and from an environmental perspective, create a resilient and sustainable landscape. And from here, I'll hand it over to Stephanie.
Thanks, Maren. So just a little refresher on some of the background of the park. It was created mainly through fill between the late 1800s and all the way up to the late 1960s. So it's relatively low lying. It was all previously developed even prior to becoming a park. So as Maren mentioned, the work is primarily located on the NRA Parcel West and NRA Parcel East, and doesn't really impact the Waterfront Trust parcel, which goes through the center of the project and also along all of the waterfront. So the resource areas and buffer zones on the site that are jurisdictional under the Wetlands Protection Act and Newburyport's Wetlands Ordinance include buffer to coastal bank. It's approximately 49,000 square feet within the 100-foot buffer. There's about 123,000 square feet of impact to the 200-foot riverfront area and about 177,000 square feet of impacts to land subject to coastal storm flowage, which we delineated by placing the base flood elevation of 12 feet that's on the firm, actually on the topography of the project site. Next slide, please. So Maren went over, basically the layout of the proposed park. So work within the resource areas will include demolition of the parking areas and the existing pathways. There'll be some limited tree removal. There'll be excavation of some contaminated soils. There is an AUL on the site, and as the contaminated soils are encountered, they will be characterized and it'll be determined if they can be reused on site or if they need to be taken off site. There'll be placement of fill either with that the excavate from the site or with clean fill to actually raise the grades a bit, and that will improve resiliency. There'll be construction of new pathways and plazas and the other elements that Maren described to you earlier. There'll be replacement and addition of utilities. There'll be a whole new stormwater management system. The parking lot will be reconfigured and there'll be new landscaping, including new trees. Next slide, please. So regarding the parking lot reconfiguration, this is where we're going to be reducing the amount of impervious cover on the site. So they'll be replaced with smaller asphalt parking lots and they'll have granite curbs and concrete sidewalks associated with them. There'll be a decrease in impervious surface of at least 18,700 square feet. As the design progresses, we're expecting that there could be some further reductions in the impervious cover. And this reduction will improve the functioning of LSCSF and the buffer zone. It'll be adding vegetated area, and that'll filter and slow stormwater before it enters the river, and it'll provide a rougher surface to slow the velocity of the coastal floodwaters. And then the planting and landscaping installation will take over from the impervious coverage, and there'll be new trees and shrubs. There'll be new lawn, perennial planting areas, and then a small event lawn that will have some reinforced turf to allow vehicular access to the bike path for emergency vehicles and for dock vehicles. As Maren mentioned, there's also the new visitor center. That's actually going to be constructed outside of all the resource areas, but nevertheless, it will be constructed resiliently, and Dan is now going to talk about some of the measures that will accomplish that.
Hi, good evening. Yeah, so the visitor center and bathroom building is replacing the existing two structures. There's the existing bathroom building that has a men's and women's restroom, and then there's a small visitor center. It's over just to the right side of the slide, kind of under that text. And so we're replacing with a new building, a new wood frame building with wood clapboard siding. The south end of the building, which is not marked on this plan, but the south end, the wider bit of the building, is the visitor center. It's about 230 square feet. And then there's a small mechanical room with janitor's closet in the middle. And then there's 8 individual restrooms along the back side of the building on the 2 sides. This building is about 922 square feet at the moment. And we currently have it located where you see it's drawn in gray. We're looking to move it towards the east where it's drawn in purple. And we're just in the process of doing that now to limit the amount of grading that we do. So as Stephanie and Maren had said, the sort of the base flood elevation that we started with of elevation 12 is that marked FEMA AE zone. It's that sort of darker purple line that runs through the drawing. That's elevation 12, and we're setting our building at elevation 15.33, which is 40 inches above that elevation 12. And so that's, I believe that's our requirement to set the building at 40 inches above elevation 12. Go to the next slide.
If I could just insert in there just a note, Dan was speaking about resiliency. Part of what we did in recent weeks was to have a meeting with a couple of folks representing stakeholders in the resiliency end of things. So a couple of folks from the resiliency committee, Julia Gobertson, Jane Healy, the chair of the committee, John Eric White, and others, to walk through this and to try to do the best we can here to move the building, as high, as high as we can on the site here, without creating substantial grading issues for the coming decades. And this is, as Dan mentioned, the reason why we're shifting it further to the east here. So we've tried to take into account feedback from some folks who are keeping a good eye on the resiliency needs that the city has.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. That's correct. So again, limiting the grading is the reason we're pushing the building back a little bit towards the east. And another thing we're introducing with this building is we're making it so that normally we might have put this as a slab on grade building, just a little 1-story building. But we're looking at making it so that there's a small crawl space underneath, and the floor is actually wood frame construction so that it could be lifted in the future if need be, similar to how a small house might be lifted, where there's a basement wall construction and there's wood frame, floor and wall above that is tied together so it can easily be lifted if need be in the future. I think that's it.
Yeah, thank you. So we can open it up for questions now.
You have anything?
So commissioners, you'll be seeing this formally as an NOI for the project, but we just wanted to give you an informal review in advance and see if you had any questions or concerns, so we could elaborate on those areas in the filing if need be.
Just have one little question. The shared use path that you've indicated, what's that going to be made out of?
That will be asphalt. We're using the same detail as the existing rail trail, so we'll be making sure to match that pavement.
You had indicated that this would be phased, and I was wondering if the whole project is going to be coming before us, and what kind of time frame would you anticipate to complete all the work?
That's a great question, and Maren, I could probably better speak to it just because on the city side, obviously, we're dealing with the funding end of it. So Sasaki's under contract to design the entire project. That's important, I think, for us looking at it from a project management perspective. We have to make sure that the transitional areas make sense, even if we have to do it in phases. For the commission's perspective, because you get to see the whole product and how it relates to other areas. But in essence, right now, we're anticipating only having enough funding right now on our best track for construction of the park elements. So essentially the west and east embayment are wings of the park off the embayment, the shared use path, and then the pedestrian ways, the new Central Wharf Way, newly named Central Wharf Way and Fair Wharf Way extending out to the street more fully. But beyond that, other elements may be phased in. Some of the site elements, swing sets, site furnishings might be donated. The visitor center element will be a later point because we're hoping for additional outside funding, federal or state, related to infrastructure, tourism and whatnot, or any other sources, but it will not be CPA related. And we're hopeful that the council will be approving CPA funding for this first phase of park construction in the coming weeks. We're also going for a state grant for construction. So by all accounts, our hope is to start construction on the park improvements in the spring of next year. We would have to then do a second phase for the parking lot areas and some plantings that go with that area. We're doing obviously the underground infrastructure first, so we're not having to dig up the park space later on. But to try to save costs and do what we can, we're trying to do the base or the framing of this entire park, in the first phase. That would be next season. And then it's a little bit harder to say when the second phase or the visitor center building would be completed. So we may have some transitional areas in the interim, like you see with the gravel parking lots or the seashell sort of seating area that's there today up by Merrimack Street.
Yeah, part of the reason for the question was that you had indicated that stormwater management would be included in the project, and I was just wanted to make sure that each phase, things would be taken care of such that that we wouldn't be in a situation where we have worse condition.
Yes, yeah. So Steve is here from the civil engineering side, and he's been working very closely with John Eric White, and we have no intention of leaving any unfinished conditions or conditions that would exacerbate anything down there in the interim, even though we may not be able to do all the parking lot improvements initially. We were doing any of the stormwater features that are tied in there so that there isn't any lack of continuity in the interim. I don't know if Steve, if you want to elaborate on that at all, but we obviously don't want to leave any loose ends on that infrastructure initially.
Yeah, that's correct. I think it sort of sums it up. It's I mentioned earlier, we are looking to do some drainage improvements to help reduce some flooding in the area, working with John Eric White on the design of the new culvert that brings water from Water Row to the bulkhead. And so that would go in for a lot of the park projects. And then the parking lot will put in to the extent necessary any new drainage systems to mitigate runoff from the temporary parking lots and install this final drainage system with the final parking lot construction. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is the shared use path elevated to act as sort of a berm for resiliency, or is it at the current level?
It is not.
Yeah, we have to, part of it, keep in mind, and it's a great question. We talk about this quite a bit with the Central Waterfront, with Waterfront West and with other areas of the city. We have to meet existing grades at the central embayment. The boardwalk is not being raised at this time. There is obviously an effort to raise the bulkhead wall and to better protect it in its aging condition. So we do plan on raising the bulkhead wall. The boardwalk is not on a near-term path to be raised, although we've walked through with the structural engineer for that separate project, the ability to just essentially raise off of the structure that's there today to keep going higher as we need. But the path itself, as Maren said, will be essentially at grade. It has to meet the embayment. It has to meet the Sculpture Park Plaza. There's not a whole lot of transition between there, but we are raising as much park space as we can with the grading that we're doing here. You can see the berms, obviously, behind the berm, the raised areas where folks will be sitting. But the path itself would need to meet the embayment and the intersecting paths, and that would make it difficult to raise up the grade with any, unless you sort of have a lot of speed bumps, so to speak.
Okay. So the areas above the shared use path there, where you're just talking about, those lines indicate elevation in that area?
That's correct. We're adding some fill behind the berm to raise the elevation to basically be the same height as that berm, so that folks that are sitting in the park space can have the same sort of vantage point that those that are sitting on the chairs that are out there today on the berm. There, that place, in that location, there will be some fill added, obviously. And we have talked about in the future, resiliency and what this means for the central waterfront, similar to what, has been discussed for Waterfront West and other areas. And we've tried to incorporate as best we can, raising this park space without, in the interim decades, having an extremely disparate situation out there in terms of grading or accessibility, in the coming decades. So.
Okay.
There's constant flood, well, not constant, but there's flooding whenever there's a storm down by the Summersby Sculpture Plaza. Is anything going to be done about that, or is that not considered the city land because it's more along with like that the ramp area next to it?
Steve, I don't know if you can address a little bit. That area is not changing in terms of its overall height. It is Waterfront Trust control, so we're coordinating with the Waterfront Trust the improvements for both the sculpture park and the connection with the boardwalk there. We're also, for the interim time anyway, bringing a nice conclusion to the path, the shared use path and the bike trail there. Obviously that'll have to integrate further with whatever happens in Waterfront West, beyond the point that we end at the sculpture park, but we're not planning to raise the grade there, so to speak. I don't know if Steve, I don't think there's any particular stormwater management we're able to do in that area. I know we're capturing as much as we can uphill, but.
Yeah, there will be some new catch basins uphill, as you mentioned, to help intercept flow. I think as far as coastal flooding, I don't think it'll make a lot of difference at this point, since the ramp will remain as it is and the grades will remain the same, as you mentioned.
So there'll be a little less sheet flow coming down the hill towards that spot, but we just can't mitigate the rivers, sort of flooding or sea level rise, so to speak, in that way.
Anybody else? No, I look forward to the NOI submission. That'll be interesting. But
well, thank you for your time tonight too. I mean, even informal feedback is helpful. You'll see obviously more detailed plans and whatnot in here, but we wanted to just kind of make sure you had an idea what was coming along, and you could tell us if there's any areas you wanted us to flesh out any further.
Okay. Yeah, if I would say if anybody's got any further questions, to submit them to Julie and Andy.
I just make one comment, regarding Carol's question, that it seems like an opportunity lost to not do something down there by the sculpture plaza, because that does currently flood and it's only going to get worse. And if we don't do something.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that has been discussed is the fact that area is not taken into account by the bulkhead project. So whether or not there's some sort of further extension or activity that takes place there. But I think generally speaking, it's been perceived as a project that might be an extension of the bulkhead side of things as opposed to the park side of things. I can revisit that with Jordy Vining tomorrow and Sasaki, as well as GEI, the firm that is working with Jordy on the bulkhead project, to see if, what else, if anything, could be done down in that area as part of either project now. I know part of it comes down to funding constraints, and some of it comes down to the area being under technically separate control, but we can certainly circle back on that point.
Does the city own that boat ramp there?
It's under the control of the Waterfront Trust.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Then, yeah, I guess we need to discuss with them, since that's where a lot of the water comes in.
That whole parking lot area usually floods as in the sculpture area too. So it seems kind of.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's why we had talked about raising the boardwalk itself. We're fully aware that we might need to raise the boardwalk itself in the future, and so we actually walked through with the structural engineer while talking about raising the bulkhead wall, which was raised by the resiliency folks as well. The idea of raising the boardwalk, and he's looked at that and believes that we can just work off of the structure that's there. Obviously, this is what the assumption that the city continues to protect that infrastructure with the new FRP panels and concrete protection for the boardwalk and the bulkhead wall that's there today. But we would basically just use the structure that's there, place new decking. We would replace any down to the concrete or steel, rebar sort of bolts and things that are coming out of there. We would just work down there to anything that might have rotted out and just work our way back up to go higher, essentially, with the boardwalk at some point down the road, assuming sea level rise follows the trajectory that we've seen projected.
Okay.
But isn't it the boat ramp that's the issue? I mean, the low point of all of this, that is the
It
issue.
is mostly, yeah.
How functional is that boat ramp?
I can't speak to that, unfortunately. I'd have to defer to the harbor master or someone in his capacity about how frequently it's used and for what. Sorry, I can't answer that question, but I know it's not quite heavily, not as heavily used, let's say, right? So
Well,
it's not a primary point, so.
it is all full of kayaks in this photo, but
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to dismiss kayaks. Sorry, I was thinking larger.
no,
boats,
I'm
but you're
just,
right. It's,
I'm just saying, I just saw all those kayaks sitting there, and I've rarely seen somebody going in and out of there, but I don't know if other people have seen it more, but it just
There
seems
might be
to
another
be,
place you can put the kayaks also.
it's a big hole in the dam for what I
Yeah.
say. So, all right, no, food for thought. We have anything else? You know, set with Sasaki?
I just want to thank everybody from Sasaki and thank the commission for your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know one other thing that's not on here that we need to do that was mentioned kind of in passing is we need a member, since Paul is retired, we need a member for the Community Preservation Committee. Is there anybody interested in serving on the CPC?
And if anybody needs me to speak to what the commission does or how frequently it meets, just let me know. I'm happy to elaborate on that.
Well, you can say that right now. Do it right now.
Yeah, you don't have to attend quite as many meetings as the Conservation Commission. That's a regular, twice a monthly because of all the permits that are happening around the city in various areas. The CPC, although it's certainly nice to be able to attend every monthly meeting, most important is they do have a required public hearing at the end of the year to get feedback from the community. But most importantly, in the spring, basically March, April timeframe, once yearly, looking at applications for CPA funding. They're typically recommended once a year on a regular grant cycle. All the local surcharge and the state matching funds that are set aside for CPA purposes, which are historic preservation, open space and recreation, and affordable housing, that the Preservation Committee provides an advisory recommendation to the City Council. The City Council then decides whether or not to appropriate the funds in accordance with that recommendation. And typically, most projects will typically be approved in the order of business, but the CPC has to provide that recommendation relative to any of the grants that come in. Sometimes they're recommended for less funding or no funding. Sometimes they're withdrawn. So you meet a couple times a year, really important timeframe in the spring, and then later the rest of the year. And every once in a while, there's an application out of cycle.
Okay. I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but if someone has any interest, why don't you think about it, and maybe next meeting we can vote on who we want to represent us. Okay.
I mean, we have a spot specifically for
Yes.
somebody from this commission. Oh, I didn't.
Yeah,
know
the
that.
Conservation Commission, because there's an open space component to it, the Conservation Commission has a seat. That's what Paul was doing that for years. Well, ever since the beginning of the CPC.
Not quite 36 years.
Not quite 36 years now. So why don't you think about it, and we'll figure it out at our next meeting.
I'll just let it be known that I'm already on 2 boards and I'm not going to be on a 3rd.
You could have just said no, Steve.
And, again, for another plug for it, very few meetings in a year, and you get to recommend funding, which is a nice thing to be able to do. So, but again, not as urgent. If you want to, look at that at the next meeting, I think next spring would be the timeframe which we'd really want to make sure, as the chair mentioned, we have some sort of representation from the commission.
Yeah. All right, we'll discuss that next time. Do we have anything further this evening? Have I forgotten anything else?
Nothing from the office unless you have any questions.
Okay. All right.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Carol, let him finish his motion.
I did. He said he made the motion.
All right, roll call. Steve Moore,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Carol Wagon,
Yes.
Charlie Lovasetti,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Welcome, Charlie. I'll try to be less confusing next time.
Thank you.
Have a good night, folks.
All right.
Bye.
Good night.
Have a
Good night,
good one.
everyone.
Very good. Take care.